Welcome to Melt University. This series will help you build your brand, inform you on a variety of career paths, and introduce you to top executives in sports and marketing. Now, here's your host, the president and CEO of Melt, one of the largest independent sports and event marketing agencies in the country, Vince Thompson.
Welcome back, students. I will continue to say summer 2020 Melt University, but as you know, we are continuing to evolve Melt University into the fall, year-round podcast, great newsletters, video lessons. The book Build Brand New out September the 15th, and within that, I'm delighted to have our guest on today, who I've just been a great big fan of for a long time because I'm kind of a geek that way. But Kevin Eastman is a former basketball coaching legend. I love to say that word, legend. And he is a fellow author whom we have both met through our book publisher, Advantage, Why the Best Are the Best. But I think as you hear him today, and Kevin, we've had some great athletic directors on. We've had some great folks in the sports industry on, and then we've also a lot of them and the athletic directors, they cite Coach John Wooden and their reading. So we've turned the kids on about that a lot. But a graduate of the University of Richmond, the Spiders, one of my favorite places and teams. There are a lot of great friends there, and also had a distinguished career as an NBA champion. Worked for the Clippers, worked for the Boston Celtics. We'll talk about his time in the NBA. We'll also talk about some of the, we got the basketball back in a bubble. There's going to be a lot of careers that are going to come around that. So he can talk to you about not only his time in the NBA, his time with Nike, his time as a head coach and assistant coach, and some of the things that he's learned coaching a lot of great student athletes, as well as some of the lessons he's helped them apply. So he's committed his life to basketball, which obviously I think a lot of the things that he's learned and he shares as a great coach and a legend, and he's shared through the author. But Kevin Eastman, we are delighted that you are joining Virtual Melt University today. Thank you for your time.
No, it's my pleasure. I think what you're doing and what you're providing, I think is a fantastic thing. Kind of wish I had access to something like this when I was younger. But for those who are accessing it, I think if they listen intently and then put a lot of thought into what they heard from all these terrific people that you've had on as guests, there's no telling what that can do for your career. Because everybody needs kind of I think, to me, I look at what you're doing as a head start for people. Mm-hmm. Things that, I wish, like I said, I wish I had heard when I was younger.
Well, and we'll talk about this in a little bit, but we are obviously all living in some of the most challenging times, the cliche uncharted waters that we've all ever been in, and many times for our young folks, and one reason that we were able to evolve into, or we wanted to evolve into a virtual environment, is that going forward, you may have to learn how to get virtual internships. You may have to learn how to do virtual job interviews. You may not work in an office environment, and if you work for an NBA team, for instance, you might be in these types of different environments as they're in the bubble in Disney Orlando. But Kevin, a lot of the same rules and axioms will apply whether you're in a virtual environment or a live environment, or we ultimately, the praying the COVID passes, these same rules. And I think that's one thing that we've all have learned together this summer. But I want to kind of take it back a little bit, because you've had, illustrious, careers, multiple careers at the highest level in the world. But let's sort of go all the way back to the start, because one thing we love to learn from our guests is how their passion informed and influenced their career path, because we're encouraging our kids to pursue their passion with great zeal, and not make, say, money or instant gratification the goal, but really, really follow your heart and follow your passion. And obviously, I'm reading between the lines here, but you clearly had a passion for basketball probably a pretty young age.
Well, yeah, for me, I came from a family of 12, so
Wow.
sometimes you're forgotten. I could always remember myself when I got out there on the court, right? Because it was me, the ball, the basket, and I
Mhm.
always knew every time I took a shot whether I was successful or not.
Wow.
So what started out as something that seemed to be fun, which is where I think passion starts from.
Hmm.
Uh, it seemed to be fun, and then you do it some more because it's even more fun, and then more fun turns out of, boy, I love this, and then love turns into passion, and then passion can, although it's not the only factor, as I often tell all the audiences I speak in front of, you know, so often we get into a particular craft or industry or take a job because we have passion for that industry, for that
Hmm.
craft, for that thing. But passion cannot be the only thing if you want to become successful. So my message say to your young audience is, it's great to have the passion, and if you could almost see me on screen, I have my left hand kind of raised in the air a little bit above my head, and then my right hand is right around my chin level.
Hmm.
So the one that's up above my head, that's your passion. The one that's at my chin level, that's your knowledge. So you have to keep learning, growing, improving, and developing to the point where the magic of a career happens when your knowledge catches up with your passion. That's when you can explode and maybe reach all the goals you had as a little kid, or all the dreams you had as a little kid, and fulfill some of the goals that you have as a little bit older person. So for me, who knows whether it was someone up above me that said, you might like basketball, go ahead and try it. I don't know
Hmm.
how I first walked onto the court. I just know that with each new day, messages were being sent that, boy, this is pretty good. This is fun. This
Hmm.
is enjoyable. And the best part about basketball is when you're on the floor, you can actually help other people look good too. So that was kind of my first lesson into what this whole concept of leadership is, right? And what becoming your best is all about. Because as you study those who are the best, one of the things that they do exceptionally well is they help those around them become a little bit better too. So that's a little bit of probably how, I don't know if it was divine intervention or uh, trying to get away from the other 11 in the family. I have no idea.
Right. Right. Well, it's interesting though because you just made some tremendous analogies from basketball to life. A couple of them. Let's unpack them for a minute. When your knowledge intersects with your passion, and you and I are never too old to learn. We're having to learn all of these new things that are going on today in the environment, social media and technology, and those types of things. And the other thing that you just pointed out is that, in basketball parlance, it would be called getting the assist, passing the ball off to another person to take that shot or picking up a player, in a defense mode where you're helping somebody defend a player. But talk about a little bit more because how to our students because a lot of they're having a lot of aha moments here when they're hearing people like you talk. But I love the intersection of knowledge and passion, and I love the assist part because. And one thing I want to talk to you about today is from the term assist is the value of building these relationships and treasuring these relationships and nurturing and helping others when they need it and they're going to help you, and you never know where it's going to manifest itself in life, do you?
Yeah, well, the first thing that comes to mind is, success, true success never happens in a vacuum.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and true success very, very, very seldom occurs without the help of someone else. Whether that be Doc Rivers, who I spent a bunch of time with, 13 years with
Mm-hmm.
in the NBA, whether that be some of the great athletes I've been around, the Kevin Garnett's, the Kobe Bryant's, Kevin Durant's, J.J. Redick, one of the best shooters in the game, you name it. they will all tell you that they need others to get to reach the level of their dreams. So where this knowledge passion gap comes into play is it's great that your young people have that passion, but you can't live on that for the rest of your career. Like I said, where the magic happens in one's career is when the knowledge, because they have a knowledge gap right now. We all have a knowledge gap. We actually all have three gaps. We have a capability gap. All of us maybe have accomplished a certain amount of in our lives, but we're capable of accomplishing so much more. So how do we fill that gap? It's listening to sessions like these and what you're providing for them. We have the knowledge gap, and that's that no matter how much we know, this world moves so fast. There's more that we need to know to get to where we want to go. And then we have what I call the action gap. And that's everyone. They'd be lying if they said, no, I don't have that. My gap's filled. No one's is. Even the guy who's talking right now. And that's the things we know we should do, but don't do because we don't take action on them. Yeah, I know they said if I wanted to drop a couple of pounds, that if I just got out and walk. Well, I know that's what I'm supposed to do, but I don't take that action. So, there's two types of people in this world. And I've said this for the last 35 years when it kind of hit me, but there are know-it-alls, which they may be ahead of some of your listeners right now at the young age. And then there are the learn-it-alls. And it's the learn-it-alls that in the end, they're the ones who are standing tall. They're the ones who have reached their goals. They're the ones that have fulfilled those dreams they had as a little kid. So I would highly encourage your listeners to think about it this way. So they listen to this little session that we have today. So they'll hopefully anyway, they'll gain some knowledge. So knowledge acquisition is one thing, but average people can do that.
Right.
Average people, they can just turn on their computer and acquire knowledge.
Well, you have it in your hand now.
Yeah, but there's knowledge acquisition and then there's knowledge application. And that's the separator, is taking all these lessons over these large number of interviews that you've done, and then really putting a lot of thought to it, seeing what fits me right now in my life. What can I do? Like, I'm now speaking professionally. That's what I do for a living. So I listen to Tony Robbins, but I'm not going to get up and on a table and jump up and down. And
right.
It's just not. But I can apply maybe how he changes his volume, maybe his body language, maybe his tone, depending on who he's talking to. So I can apply the knowledge I learned from, say, watching him to me and where I am in my life and my career.
Well, by the way, I think we may have uncovered the title of your next book, The Action Gap. I love that. And and that was sort of, when the pandemic hit with me, I was on this giant hamster wheel running this big old company and had not had a break in a very long time. And I said, well, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do something for myself, and I'm going to get back out into Chastain Park, and I'm going to start walking around it because I've always taken care of myself, and I just was so busy I'd kind of let that shift. And so I love the action gap, and so I want to segue into your book, and I want to tie it into what you were talking about with the NBA. Tell us about the book, Why the Best are the Best, because students, I would highly recommend you get this book and you read it, and anything that Kevin is publishing or distributing is just such words of wisdom. That's why I was so excited to talk to him about. And then, Kevin, talk about what separates the great ones. I watched The Last Dance, and I was really just fascinated with. I thought I knew a lot about Michael Jordan, but I mean, I've never, it actually was an inspirational documentary to see just that sheer drive and that sheer will, because he could have melded it on talent for the rest of his career, but he multiplied it with the will and the desire and the passion and obviously the outcome of 6 championships. But tell us about your book and then what separates the great ones.
Yes, well, you named you gave the title of the book "Why the Best of the Best," and the subtitle is "25 Powerful Words That Impact, Inspire, and Define Champions." And what I found out over my 35 years in the game, the last 13 of which was in the NBA at the professional level, as I started to really study over those 35 years, because I had an insatiable curiosity about why do successful people, what do they do that
Mhm,
got them that level of success?
mhm.
So I would constantly study people who became successful, and not always the very best at what they do, because other people are successful and they're their best, maybe not the best. There's two bests in this world, the best and my best. And the successful people are the ones who have figured out how to get to that level that they have become their best. So that's what started me on this process of writing the book. But where I came up, what I found was when I really studied or talked with these great achievers, uh, researched them, I found that when they were asked the question along the lines of, how did you get to where you've gotten? How did you become as good as you've become? Well, the answers all seem to have the same words that they used in them.
Right.
So I started out with about 92. And then as I really whittled them down, because some were very similar, I came up with 25. So what this is these words are almost the action items. They're the daily habits, routines, drives, and mindset that put you in a position to become your best.
Mhm.
So that's what the book is about. So what I do in it is I'll define the 25 words. I give an example in most cases of someone that the reader probably knows of that utilizes this word deeply in the things that they do. But the difference is this: if anyone does pick it up and read it, they're going to probably say, "Well, yeah, I've heard that word from a coach, or I've heard that from a parent, or I've heard that from a minister." You know, I've heard those words. Well, so too have the best of the best. But the
Mhm.
difference is some people have these words in their vocabulary. The successful people live these words every day.
Wow. Wow.
So it's the difference between having and living that is the separator. So, and then as you get into the question you asked about what really does make the best, we don't have time to go over all 25 words, but the first thing I would throw out is uh, they they don't they don't call it this, but as I come to study, this is really what it is. I call it the three-dimensional look at success. And all the great ones, all the ones that have become their best, here's the three-dimensional look at success. They learn from the past, they produce in the present, and they prepare for the future. If all of your listeners would do that each and every day, they'll have a shot at getting to where they want to go. They'll have a shot at becoming who they always dreamed of becoming. So they've got to learn from the past, not live in the past. See, average and below average people live in the past. Successful
Right.
people learn from the past.
Mhm.
And learning from the past, uh, it could be you're learning from the last 4 minutes of a game, right? You didn't
Mhm.
play very well, and there's a timeout. You can learn from those last 4 minutes and make an adjustment at that timeout.
Mhm.
You might have scored 60 in the first half. Well, learn from the past. What did you do well? Keep doing those things. Don't turn 60 into cocky.
Mhm.
Both words end with Y.
Mhm.
60 and cocky, right?
Mhm.
So learn from the past. Don't live in the past. And if you've had failures, don't live there. Learn from them. The best of the best understand that failure is a lesson.
Mhm.
Or
By the way, we talk about that a lot. And the other thing we talk about is you don't drive a car from the rearview mirror, you drive it through the windshield. So that's what you're
yeah,
saying.
yeah, that's great. That's really good. So if I like, so I would. There's a couple of things I throw out. Let me just hit very quickly on three really important words. And the first word I'm going to hit on is the single most important word we believe in all of success. No matter what you do, no matter what sport your young people play, it doesn't matter. Male, female, pro, amateur, corporate person, athlete. The single most important word in all of success is the word truth. Truth. because how can I get to where I want to go if I don't know the truth about what I'm doing well, keep doing that. Or what I'm not doing quite good enough, improve upon that, make an adjustment, make a change. I can't get to where I want to go unless I hear the truth. Now, whether you are an individual, a team, or a corporate team, there are three things that need to exist for, we believe anyway, for you to be successful. And truth needs three things. And here they are. You got to be able to live it, you got to be able to tell it, and you got to be able to take it. By live it, I simply mean this for all your listeners. Do your actions match your words? There's a lot of athletes in this country who are in the top 1% at talking a good game.
Amen.
Yep. And when the doo-doo hits the fan, they're in the bottom 1% of production.
Watch the actions and watch the words.
Yeah, exactly. Because if you are in a leadership position, one of the most important things we do following you is we are constantly seeing if the match exists. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you say, you want us to work hard, but you come in at 10 and leave at 2. It doesn't fit, right? Mm-hmm. So you got to be able to live it. You got to be able to tell it. And if any of you young people want to get into a leadership role, I'll just make it very simple. Telling the truth is all about two things: who and how. Who am I speaking to, and how should I craft this message? Mm-hmm. You know, we've had some players in the NBA, like J.J. Redick. I mentioned his name earlier. You could yell at J.J. for 7 weeks. And then at the end, when you're done, he'd turn around and go, "I got you, coach." And he'd go out and do it. We had a 7-footer. I won't name his name, but if you did that same thing to him, mm-hmm. that 7-footer would become 5'5". So you got to know who you're talking to and how you should talk to them when you're dealing with this concept of truth. And then you got to be able to take it. And this is where we've all been lied to in our lives. I've lied to my son. My wife and I have lied to him because we told him the wrong thing. Mm-hmm. As did my dad, and my dad's dad told him. And everyone listening, you probably said this to your children. And what we said was this: the truth hurts. No, that's a lie. Well, yeah, I take that back. The truth hurts to average and below average people.
Right.
The truth actually helps successful people. Like, I need to hear it. Like, we had a player, Kevin Garnett, who many of your listeners may know.
I think he was also a famous actor now, right, too?
Well, let's keep him in the Hall of Fame. Yeah, so don't get me to critique that one. But with him, when we first got him in the trade, he actually demanded we tell him the truth. Because he thought if he didn't hear the truth, then he couldn't give us and his teammates the best Kevin Garnett that's capable of being given. Mm-hmm. So for Kev, and Kev has a thick skin, so he didn't care how it was delivered. He just wanted to hear it. So truth is so important. And, you have probably a lot of athletes that are listening to this, if not all athletes. I just want to ask them a question. If I had them in front of me live, I would say this. All right, guys and ladies, raise your hand when I describe who you really want to be. So the first grouping is, how many want to be average? Well, no one. Actually, they all look around to see if anyone raised their hand. Well, no one raises their hand. How many want to be good? Boom. Almost the whole room will shoot up. And then I'll say, look, you have a chance to change your vote. Like, if you really think you're average, more so than good, that's okay. You can change it. So let me give you the last one. How many want to be great at what they do? Boom. Those same ones that wanted to be good, they all raise their hand to great. Mm-hmm. So here's where the lesson comes in, because this is what we found through just being around so many players over these years. The average people and players, they want to be left alone. Hey, coach, I'm good. I got the uniform. I got hallway cred. I got street cred. I'm good. Just don't even pretend I'm not here. Just let me wear the uniform and warm up. So, is that what you want to be? The good players, they want to be coached. They do want to be led. But the great players, they want to be told the truth. So you have to figure out what group do you want to be, and are you willing to pay the price to be there? Because every new seat you want to occupy has a little bit of a price to pay to make that move upward.
Hmm.
So then the second word I would simply throw at your group is that was really important to why the best are the best is the word preparation. And the definition that I'll give to your group is this: be there before you get there. If you can do that, you'll be prepared. Be there before you get there, which means mentally prepare for that next opponent.
Hmm.
Study the scouting report. Listen to the coaches when they're going over the game plan that the opponent might put in. You see, what happens is if like the example I use is Ray Allen. Most of your listeners probably will remember the great shot Ray made, the 3-point shot that sent Game 6 of the Miami Heat San Antonio Spurs series into overtime.
You won't believe this, but my son and I were actually there in the arena.
Okay, then you know all about the yellow tape.
Oh my goodness, it was
Yeah.
the most unbelievable thing ever.
Yeah. So Ray, LeBron shoots it from the left wing, misses. They're down 3, Miami is. So if they don't score, San Antonio wins the title. So Chris Bosh gets the miss. Ray sees that Chris is about to get the miss, and he wants to get to the corner and behind the 3-point line as fast as possible. And he made a conscious decision that if he ran there, then had to turn around again to find the ball and the pass from Chris, it would have taken too much time.
Hmm.
So he full speed backpedaled. Chris threw him the ball. Ray shoots it. The rest is history. He makes the shot. They win in overtime and they win Game 7. So why do I tell this story relative to preparation? When we had Ray Allen with the Celtics, I was one of the guys that always worked out with him. Myself and Mike Longobardi, another assistant. Whenever Ray wanted to shoot, we were there in the gym with him. Didn't matter. 2 a.m., we were there. 10 a.m., we were there. 10 p.m., we were there. Didn't matter. So Ray did a drill actually where he started in the lane underneath the basket. I would be, say, at the top of the key. I would smack the ball. He would turn. He would just speed backpedal to behind the 3-point line. We'd throw it to him. He'd shoot it. You see, if we get back to the definition of preparation and why it's so important, the definition is be there before you get there. You see, Ray's shot wasn't luck. He had been there thousands and thousands of times
God,
before.
that is amazing.
So even when I go speak, you're probably the same way. I don't know how you are, but one of the things I always want to do is get into that room before people get in the room
Yep.
and look at the stage. I want to look at the width and the breadth of the audience so I know how far I need to go from right to left with my vision so I can include everybody. But the most important thing, and it's kind of stupid, I look for all the wires and cords on the floor.
Oh yeah.
There's nothing worse. Like all of a sudden you get this unbelievable introduction and you're coming out there and the crowd's giving you this blind respect. And then boom, you trip on one of those cords. You've lost everything. You might as
Wipe
well
out.
get that
Yep.
room. Yeah.
And by the way, it's happened to me.
Oh, I mean, you got to be prepared. I want to be there before I get there. So anyway, that's the preparation. And the last word I'll throw out.
Well, let me make one point because
Yeah.
you just hit on something that we talk about to our kids. One other thing that I really love to do, and we've talked to our kids about this as well, is know your target. So anytime that I go to speak, not only do I want to know the mass of the target of the audience, but I want to know the composition of the audience. Is it more male, more female? Is it more educated, less educated? Because then you can kind of sort of customize what you're saying to that target. And this same thing applies to these kids interviewing for internships and jobs, and it ladders back to your second word, prepare. Know everything there is about your opponent or your target or your audience. And so everything you just said about preparation is reinforcing everything we've been teaching our kids all summer.
That's great. I mean, you guys are spot on with that lesson. So, but anyway, we'll move on to something else if you'd like to.
So no, we got plenty of time. So word 3, what's number 3?
Yeah. Well, this is one that I wasn't sure. I kind of had a little bit of an idea of some of the words that likely would pop up, but this one I wasn't sure until it actually showed up all the time. And that word is intentional. Being very intentional about what it is you want to accomplish, how you're going to accomplish it, and how often you're going to try to accomplish it.
Mm-hmm.
And the definition for intentional is a very simple one, but I think if your group, your listeners will live this every day, again, they're going to have a chance to maybe get to where they want to go. And the definition is what you do on purpose to fulfill your purpose. So if my purpose right now is to be the best speaker I can be and message sender to your audience, um, then what did I do on purpose this week to put my thoughts together, uh, anticipating maybe some of the questions you might ask, right? So your athletes, whatever sport they play, what did they do on purpose yesterday?
Mm-hmm.
And what are they going to do on purpose to fulfill their purpose as an athlete on that team?
Mm-hmm.
So be very, very intentional. And there's a difference between having intentions and being intentional. Having intentions, I define as it's in my mind and I'll get to it. But being intentional, it's not in my mind. Being intentional, it's front of mind and I will get to it. And that's the separator and the difference between the average and the above average or the good or the great, is that they're very, very intentional each and every day. Whether that was Kobe waking up at 4 a.m. so he could start his first workout in the off season at 4:30 in the morning.
Wow.
That was intentional. And that your listeners don't have to do that, but he was very intentional about that.
Mm-hmm.
Taking care of, it's amazing, the best players at the professional level, how intentional they are about taking care of their bodies.
Mm-hmm.
LeBron spends over $1 million a year just on his body, from the cryo machines in his house to his sleep chamber to his, we all can't afford these things, but this is how intentional
Right.
the best of the best are.
Right.
So I would encourage all of the young people to put a little more thought to, what do I really want to do right now with my life? And what can I do and intentionally do each and every day
Mm-hmm.
to maybe get closer to being that?
Well, it's interesting because as I was starting my business around 02 and 03, Coca-Cola actually signed LeBron, one of his longest sponsors next to Nike, and I had the honor and the privilege of working with him beginning in 03 with Powerade, and even at 19, he was having brand academies at the University of Akron, and I was fascinated at just how purely intentional that he was and was going to be about his destination. I mean, it's been, and a lot of people don't really, really understand that, and how, the four childhood friends, they're intentional in building a global multi-billion-dollar brand. I got a fourth word I want to throw at you.
Yes.
And we hear this a lot from our kids. We hear this a lot from our speakers. It's a word that's one of my words that I've always lived by, getting to Auburn University from rural lower Alabama, 800 people. Light bulbs were going off left and right when I got there. But the word relentless, what does that word mean to you, and how does that apply to the great ones?
Well, first of all, with the Los Angeles Clippers, I coached there for 3 years, maybe 4. And we had a change of ownership. And the new and current owner is a guy by the name of Steve Ballmer, who many of your older listeners will understand who he is in Microsoft. But
he founded a little company called Microsoft, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And his single most important word to him in his career is relentless. He uses that all the time, and it is a part of not just the culture, but it is the part, one of the, we would define who can play for Doc Rivers. Mm-hmm. A Doc Rivers player looked like X. Well, one of the descriptive words was relentless, right? So it's a really important word. And to me, at its simplest form, is I will never stop trying to get to where I want to go. Mm-hmm. Roadblocks, check, got that. But they're Other people have gotten over, under, around, or through them. So I'm going to be relentless in my approach. I'm going to be passionate about my approach. I'm going to be positive about my approach.
Mhm.
I know I'm going to fail at some point. But and that's a key word too. I know a lot of people like fear the consequence of failure, but I would ask your listeners to change their mindset about failure.
We love that word, by the way.
Yeah, it's part of growth, but obviously, but if you fear the consequence of failure, I always ask people to put equal fear to the consequence of never trying.
Mhm.
What happens if you tried and it worked? And I'm a living example of this. I was scared to death to coach in the NBA because everyone says, "Oh, how can you be scared to coach in the NBA? You get to like put gym clothes on and go out and hang out with Kevin Garnett and Paul Pierce and Kevin Durant and all those guys." Well, guess what? All those Hall of Famers, they put Hall of Fame demands on your knowledge,
Right, right.
and you better be on not every day, every second that when your voice is coming over to them. You better be on because they don't have time for someone who kind of knows their subject matter. Boy,
They'll blow you out of the water quick, will they not?
yeah, I mean they'll be nice. They're off the floor. They're going to be, hey coach, what's going on? Bup, 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 bup. But on the floor, they're going to the people who know what in the heck they're talking about because they don't have time. They're trying to win a championship.
Right,
They're trying to be the best in the world. And when you try to be the best in the world, you need best of the world instruction.
right.
So
It's an interesting thing. I did not think about that. So that always required you to be on the top of your game as well and be prepared because the players are going at that level are going to be constantly challenging you guys as much as the coaches are going to be challenging the players, and that's an interesting thing. But I tell you, we have a saying within our students and our listeners, but that failure is only the failure to try. And you're going to get knocked off the saddle. You're going to get told no. And we say the letters NO, just don't spell no. It's the first two letters of not yet. And
mm,
you've reinforced that. And all along those lines, shift a little bit. One of my pet peeves as an employer, and one of my pet peeves is, and employers, we compare notes with one another, is that our students today in this generation have some kind of inflated sense of instant gratification, and they want to be the CEO in 3 months, or they get in a job in 3 months and they don't like the job. And I'm like, well, how would you know you don't like the job? Any relationship you've been in for 3 months, you don't know anything about that person or that situation. Talk about your philosophy on instant gratification and what can we share with our students about how not to fall in that trap. You get a Zuckerberg, everybody goes, oh my God, he's a unicorn, but that's why it's called a unicorn. You don't read about the 999 other guys who weren't unicorns. So talk about that with today's generation.
yeah, well, I think the first thing I would say to you is like I remember listening to a documentary. It was Beyonce. They were going through her past and all. And at one point, she was asked a question, and her answer was, I may paraphrase here, but well, I just need you to know, it took me 15 years to become an overnight sensation.
Right. It was a long night, right?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, and what we always would tell our players about, what happens with a lot of overnight sensations, they also become one-hit wonders
Mm-hmm.
because they didn't put the foundation was weak. Um, look, what you find, what all the guys I've been around, even the guys who have made it to the NBA, y- everyone sees them on national or international television in underneath the bright lights. But it's those days, weeks, months, years, minutes, those days where you don't want to do anything, but you have to do that thing
Mm-hmm.
to get to where you want to go. It gets back to your relentless, the word relentless, your everyday approach to things, and to have a strong foundation, you have to understand that success will take some time, and that's okay because the key is when you arrive, you are ready and you are prepared,
Mm-hmm.
right? once you do arrive to that big stage that you've always hoped to be on. Because what you find out, it's always harder than you thought it was going to be.
Oh,
So, like, I don't know anyone in pro sports who uh, who had an attitude of, there's two attitudes. There's the attitude of entitlement, which is a little bit of what you're getting at with this
mhm.
topic, and then what I would say to your listeners is this: do you want to live in the world of entitlement, or do you want to start to understand the power of investment? Because
Mhm.
it's to be successful for a sustainable period of time. That is a continuous investment into your own, what I call your own GDI, your own growth, development, and improvement. So, um, if they want to get there real fast, they better be like those Walenda brothers who crossed the canyon.
Right, right,
Because when you get there fast, man, that rope is so thin and it's so easy to
right,
fall off. The people who get there a little bit slower, they have a bridge to go over, a really wide, strong bridge
right.
to go over that canyon.
Well, we have, one of my favorite songs is it was Hank Williams. If you're big star bound, let me warn you, it's a long, hard ride. And
Mm,
and I still listen to that song because I'm like, I'm still grinding away out here. And and the funny thing, Kevin, is that with the exception of maybe truly wealthy people, is that the COVID-19 has just basically just flattened the world. I mean, Melt alone went from 100 plus employees and millions and millions of dollars of revenue, producing our 18th Final Four, literally in one night.
gosh.
Everything went away in one night. All live sports basically, went away, and they're kind of creeping back, but not in the environment that's conducive to what we do for a living right now. And so that's why you got to continue to keep grinding and being relentless. And another thing I want you to touch on, and we talk to our kids a lot about this. And by the way, I wish I had learned this lesson much earlier because I'm an emotional guy. I'm passionate. I'm creative. But but learn to have thick skin and learn not to take anything no. If somebody tells you no and you view it as a rejection or it's personal, you don't know what factored into being told that no. And I wish I had learned that because I tend to take things a lot very personally, and I have had to learn over time because it's gotten me in trouble sometimes. But if we can share that wisdom with our students and our listeners, what would be your take on that?
Well, I guess it would be the most important personal thing you can do is to never take things personally,
Right,
right?
right.
Because there's so many things. Oftentimes the thing we take personally is something that we tried something and then someone had a comment about what we just tried, and they don't know all the work that went behind it, right? So you have to be true. Well, first off, when you hear something and you take it personally, first of all, decide whether it's true.
Hmm.
That's why I love the mirror, because I Googled it last night and the mirror has never told a lie,
All right.
right? The mirror could be and it can be in different places. It could be in the bathroom, it could be in your car, it could be in a little flip thing. You look at your phone and turn it backwards, right? And see yourself in the phone. It doesn't lie. So when you look in that mirror, um, it should be, did you do everything you could to be your best that particular day? Or is what the criticism said, is there some truth to that?
Yeah.
Right? So I think life is just a continual self-reflection. And that's why, that's why that first word we talked about, truth. I think everyone should have a truth teller in their life, and everyone should do at least once a year, a truth audit.
I love that. Truth audit.
So, and it could be that you do one on yourself, and then your circle, your close circle, your truth tellers, they do one on you as well.
Mm-hmm.
But I always ask people, consider the source. Who's saying that,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because they may see you on your best night and say you're better than you actually are. So, what other people say, if you don't know them and you don't respect them, what did Gandhi say? I'm not going to let you walk through my mind with dirty feet,
I
right?
love that one.
So why don't let people? Now it's hard, it's easy to say, hard to do. But what I believe is this: the the strength, the thickness of your skin, and the strength of your conviction can only be as strong as the work that's put in behind it.
Mm-hmm.
So if you've known you've put in the work and you've done everything you can do, and someone still critiques you, right? Take it for what it's worth. Take out of it and extract what can help you, and then put it to the side because they haven't lived with you every day. They haven't seen what you've gone through. And for those guys who think they are the only ones in the world getting critiqued, well, welcome to the club of, in my sport anyway, the sport that I love. Welcome to the same club of LeBron James,
Mm-hmm.
Kevin Garnett, Kobe Bryant, Kevin Durant, James Harden. Those guys get ripped every game,
Mm-hmm.
but they're true to themselves, and they go to their best truth teller, the mirror.
Well, we've talked. You hit on a lot of things. Roosevelt's comment about the man in the arena. I love that one.
Mm-hmm.
Churchill's comment. You'll never get to the destination of your journey if you stop to pay attention to all the barking dogs along the way. And my favorite is other people's opinion of me is none of my business, and just stay focused. So, I mean, so as we wrap this up, wind this down, a couple of questions we always love to ask our guest. Um, what gets Kevin Eastman's attention if a young aspiring college student, a young aspiring student athlete, or a recent college graduate, they track you down and they find you and they want just 10 minutes of wisdom, advice, of time or insight or connection, whether it's a career in the NBA or whether it's a speaking career or being an author. What gets your attention when they track you down and they reach out to you? We love to hear these tips from the best.
For me, it's the quality of their questions, the
Mm-hmm.
depth of their questions. Like, I don't think I should have to answer, hey, how did you get there? I'm looking out the window right now. This person walking across the street here, they could ask me that question.
Mm-hmm.
But you're trying to get somewhere. And the quality and depth of your questions will determine the quality and depth of the information you walk away from. Because, everyone's wrapped up in the written resume. Gosh, I need to send that resume. And
Mm-hmm.
well, that's important. It's really important, but that's only one of the most important
Right.
resumes. There's the verbal resume. How do you talk? How do you ask your questions? There's the visual resume, right?
Mm-hmm.
You look like a lazy person, right?
Right. That's why we talk about the packaging and the branding and padding that thing up.
Yeah,
You and I are self starters. We can figure out who's a self starter and who's not pretty damn quick, as most of these people that the level they're trying to pitch on.
yeah. So that's what I just want to hear them. And sometimes I'll say, hey, look, I know that this is the first time that you and I have talked, but I'm going to ask you to do this. Go back and go a little bit deeper
Mm-hmm.
with your questions, and then get back to me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because if you truly want to get to where you want to go, I can't allow you to just ask that as your first question.
Well, we're trying to explain to our students that every interaction they have with Kevin or Vince is a form of an audition, whether they understand that or not. You're communicating what type of employee you will be to an employer. And one of my greatest pet peeves, and the students have heard this millions and millions of times, is that somebody will apply for a job through a generic web address on our site, and it simply will say, attaches my resume and I need to make X amount of dollars a year. Well, I immediately flush those as opposed to making the effort to track Vince Thompson down, because there's no reason nobody can find, my email anywhere in the world, or yours. Secondly, hey, Mr. Thompson, War Eagle, you went to Auburn, great success with Melt. That tells me that at least they have made a shallow surface effort to at least break the ice on the conversation. And so at least I'll consider that. And to your point, put Easter eggs out there to see if that effort is there, because it's a constant sort of audition. If I'm going to invest the time, money, energy, and resources into hiring somebody, you're going to want to know real quick what type of employee you make. I mean, that's the same thing you're saying, right?
Yeah, because the second thing for me, and it is equally important, uh, what's their research? What do they know about me, and why are they calling me? Uh, so I agree with you 100%.
Well, it's so. As we wrap this up, it's been fascinating, and so many great stories. But what you've had an illustrious career in collegiate professional basketball athletics, the greats of the greats. You've written this great book. You're a sought after speaker all over the country. Why the best of the best. But what are some of your, or what have been some of your other go-tos, whether they be books, whether they be publications, whether they be podcasts, whether they be, um, you know, audio seminars, or what are some other sources and resources that you would provide, share with our students that motivate and inspire you?
Yeah, well, the first thing I would say is that they're growing up in the generation of the internet, and shame on any of us for not being able to find, like, I did a leadership thing right before the pandemic broke, to a group of aspiring leaders, and one of the things I said is, how many really, now just be honest with you, your bosses aren't here, and we're not filming it, so tell me the truth. How many of you really, really want to be a great leader?
Mm-hmm.
And all of them raised their hand. And I said, okay, well, how many of you read something yesterday that could help you become better? Obviously, the number of hands went down,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I just wanted to make the point that all any information we want is out there. There are
Everything.
over, I think, 10 million uh, search hits, or you can find something, articles, books, whatever, on this concept of leadership.
Mm-hmm.
So many of my mentors I've never met personally,
Mm-hmm.
right? So it's just that. Well, like I read a lot about Oprah Winfrey,
Mm-hmm.
because from her start to where she is today, amazing story. But I've learned a lot from her, and I never have and never will meet her. So for me, it's not one source. I read articles, I read blogs. It just kind of two things hit with me: the title of it, and then I'll go through a quick scan. And if it looks
Right.
good, I'll keep reading. Obviously, I read books as well. But the other thing that I do, remember, I said there's because all of us are on a seek and find mission. If we want to be successful, we are all on a seek and find
Right.
mission.
Right.
But anybody can do those two things. It's the second two steps that really make the difference. So you seek and find, and you follow it up with think and apply.
Mm-hmm.
So I put a lot of thought to articles I read, books I read. I have to me, this is one of the better books that your young people can read. The title is Win Forever by Pete Carroll, the coach of the Seattle Seahawks.
Mm-hmm.
And why this is good is because everyone knows how good he was at USC, and Super Bowl. They were in the Super Bowl, right? And with the Seattle Seahawks, but he got fired from his first two professional jobs.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
So
Miserably, by the way.
yeah, and what he did is he soul searched.
He looked in the mirror.
Yeah, and he came up with what truly who he was, and that what I would suggest all of it. And it's hard to do when you're a young person, but what do you believe in? What do you value? You got to start figuring out who you are. because when you get into that coaching position, every decision you make is going to probably or should be made through the lens of your value system.
You
Right?
know, by the way, we preach that a lot.
Yeah. If your AD comes in and says, "Hey, you've had 2 bad years in a row, so look, for just this year, I'm good with this. We won't tell anybody. It's just you and me. You can cheat a little bit to get some good players and then maybe get back on track." I would have to tell that athletic director, "I'm sorry, I can't do that." But Kevin, it's your job on the line. I'm sorry, I can't do that. I can't operate that way.
Right.
I may have to fire you. Well, you know what the definition of a value is?
Yep.
Something you're willing to be fired over.
Exactly.
That's a core value.
And we've heard that, but you know, you hit on something with Pete Carroll, and we'll unpack it before we close. But think about this: Pete Carroll made one of the probably arguably worst calls in Super Bowl history, and took a almost a total victory, and it wound up being a loss. And but again, what did he do? He got right back up on that saddle, and then they went and won.
Yeah.
So to your point.
No, you're right. I mean, the best of the best, they fail. They're publicly embarrassed. I mean, it just happens. It's part of the club.
Right.
So,
What 200 million people? What 200 million people? That's a hell of a stage to witness failure on. But you know, he was relentless. He got right back up on that saddle. He tore the rearview mirror down out of his car, and he kept driving forward. So, but Kevin Eastman, I mean, God, we could sit here for hours and talk, and I can assure you that our students are going to love this. You're going to hear from them. They're going to put the preparation and the grind in to track you down and seek you as a virtual mentor, online mentor, or when you're speaking somewhere. But you know, just amazing. You know, Richmond Spider, long and storied career in the NBA with some of the greats of the greats. But you know, leadership and motivational speaker, author of Why the Best Are the Best. Students, find that book. Buy it. I have learned and been so inspired by Kevin, you today. We just really appreciate sharing your time and your wisdom with all the students of Melt University.
No, the pleasure truly has been mine. And the last thing I'll say as I part here is, you know, you can be humble and still be ultra successful. Mm-hmm. You don't have to be a jerk to reach your goals. As a matter of fact, I would argue that vulnerability and humility are actually success separators today. Mm-hmm. So just do this with the right mindset, and whatever you do in life, always do right.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So Kevin, thank you so much for your time. Melt University, not summer, still virtual. Still 2020. We're gonna roll on, but Kevin, we appreciate you joining us today.
Thanks, Vince. Hope you enjoyed today's virtual class. We'll be back soon with another edition of Melt University 2020.